Welcome back to the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast. I'm your humble and very contrite host, Michael Lundy, and on this episode of the podcast, we have one of the most talented, versatile, and just all-around great musician from the Central Susquehanna Valleys. It is Chris Carithers. Chris Carithers is one of the most versatile guitar players I have seen. Everything from folk to bluegrass to jam band, and he is an award-winning songwriter. And we're going to talk about that and talk about his past and, you know, the gear he let go and wishes he had back, and just so. And it was finally great to finally meet Chris and chat with him. So sit back, relax, put those tray tables in the upright position for our interview with Chris Carithers, and we're going to kick it off with his song Firefly right now on the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast.
Wash the water with her wishes. Heavy head like a brick above the moon reflected, and on her lips a whisper too true. Break through the mirror bright, fly like a firefly. Fly like a firefly. Walls of glass with a thin fence of paper, delicate constellations in a mason jar. Dim glow, willow thin wisps of dream sun. Close fog vanishes the evening's brightest star. High above the firelight, embers drift, dreams above a broken heart. From the heat of burning grace, float away down the channels of your memory. Childhood play, summer rain, catching fireflies. Rest within the welcome of the river tonight. Dive deep, forgiven and forget this life. Break through light to the other side.
Firefly, and that is a jaunty little song from Chris Carithers that he is sharing with us here on the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast, and that means that our guest today for the podcast is one of this area's. Well, he's an award-winning songwriter that we'll talk about a little later on, but be that as it may, he is a wonderfully gifted songwriter. But as I have said a number of times, not only just offline to people if they're willing to listen to me, but also on the radio show, that Chris is probably one of the most versatile guitarists and musicians in this area. He plays for a number of different projects, and it's a vast swath of different styles. And whether he thinks of himself as a journeyman, whether he thinks of it, but he is just so versatile. I've seen him do everything from Jerry Garcia inspired jams to finger picking to bluegrass, that really rapid stuff. It just I a lot of times if I see him out playing, I'll just want to go home and set fire to all my guitars because he's just really that good. But without further ado, we are so glad to have on this episode of the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast the one and only Chris Carithers from Williamsport. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure.
Very kind words, so I appreciate it.
It's from the heart. It's from the heart. You may not remember. I think you had an ad out or something, and this is a long time ago. This may be going on like 9 years ago. You were looking for someone to partner with for music. And I think I don't know, I didn't know you from Adam at the time. And I think I sent you an email or a message or something, and you had sent me back a very gracious response. But I got the impressions like, oh man, I am not even in the same talent level as this guy. And I think it was you. I think it was you. And I look back on it as like, nah, dude, you're punching way above your weight class trying to get into a project with Chris Carithers at that point. But it really is from the heart. You are a great musician. I mean, just from the various projects that you're with. You play with go through the projects that you're currently or have done in the recent past and doing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that word journeyman that you mentioned, I think is, probably accurate in that I just love to learn music, and I love to, and especially enjoy spending time with the people I play with, which is probably really how I get involved with bands. Is you kind of just have to be having fun doing it.
Yeah.
So most recently, our bluegrass band, the Sylvan Dell Stragglers, has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And those guys, Seth, Levi, and Tom, were old friends on their own, and had already had a repertoire of music. And so it's a privilege to be able to kind of just waltz into a band that's established and just kind of.
Now, how long have you been playing with them?
Probably pushing about 2 years now.
Okay. All right.
About 2 years. But, the bluegrass has really inherited the Deadhead crowd now that some years have gone by.
Yeah.
So it's really a community.
Yeah.
And it's also a lot more progressive. There's certainly an angle of tradition to it, but
right.
it can be a lot more progressive. And so that's the fun part. And then having a family, and my kids are a little older, for probably around that time that you mentioned us corresponding was when I was in that grounded for life phase of parenting.
Oh, okay.
That's where a lot of this, I think some of the songwriting is born of necessity because, your life, there's a good 10 or 20 years where your life revolves around your home, so there's gardening and there's whittling and there's home recording and things like that. And so that's where a lot of the songs come from. The guys in the Stragglers are all a little younger than me, so they're in that phase now.
Yeah.
Whereas mine are about to move out, are in the end of high school. And so
you don't look that old, by the way. You don't look that old to have kids that are at the end of high school, dude. So.
Well, I'm very dedicated to leisure. I try to avoid hard work.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Smart
keeps
man.
you young. So
yeah. Hey, speaking of life and everything. So let's set the Wayback Machine to when things started for you. Where were you born? Where you grew up?
Oh boy.
Where do you?
Well, I grew up in a mythical time called the 1900s before the internet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And in an alien universe called the Coal Region, about an hour or two east of here.
Okay.
Northeast PA, which is
whereabouts specifically? Because
Schuylkill County.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Ringtown. So it's
oh my gosh! Okay, so nobody's gonna. Did you know a Dr. Martiak? He was a pediatrician in that area, and I did when I was in PA school. I did my pediatric rotation during the clinical part of the didactic part of the PA school. I did with a Dr. Martiak, and so I'd have to drive from Wilkes-Barre to Ringtown.
Huh.
So I know where Ringtown is. Holy
wow.
Geez. Yeah.
You and I might be a few of the only people in range that.
Yeah, no kidding.
But,
So that's where you grew up. You hail from that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's that's a really unique place culturally, in that it has its own culture, and it has its own pretty turbulent history, which I think is where that loving the story songs, loving the history comes from, and loving to draw on that local stuff. And then, but also, it was kind of a bit back in the 70s and 80s and 90s was a bit of the Wild Wild West there. And so, playing in bar bands and stuff in high school. So Ringtown, I mean, when you say it's kind of ingrained in history, we talk like coal mining and okay. And, back at the turn of the 19th and the 20th century, even into the middle of you're right. It was like the Wild Wild West, with the coal companies and the workers and the establishment of the unions. I mean, that's just, and a lot of people even in this region, in this area, in this state, don't appreciate the history of the Northeast PA coal mining and all the stuff that they went through. And I tried, actually, one of the songs to get to later, Peddler's Grave, is based on a lot of that, and I actually tried to kind of encapsulate as much as I could there. But I think it's an area that had its own economy, also had layers of influx of immigration from all over the world, and so you had one culture laid on top of another, cultures borrowing, cultures clashing. Over time, the new guys always has to. The old guard never quite appreciates the new guy for the first 50 years. And then also there's a lot of perspectives to it. So some of those stories, I think historically, there's a debate of, you take a story like the Latimer Massacre that happened in Hazleton, which is you could say, is this a labor story? This is about the organization of labor in the beginning. Or can you say, is this an immigration story? This is Eastern European, is this about ethnicity, or is this about labor? Is this about,
well, it probably all plays into the same. It's probably an amalgam, would you say that songs and, those kind of, not songs, but those kind of incidents in the past, it's probably an amalgam of everything, labor and immigration and, the cultures and business and economics.
Sure. Or, the role of government and all these things that I know this is, I'm not sure if this is strange content for a radio show about music.
Remember what I said, there's no rules, man.
But these, all of these stories have, that's what you can really only do them justice on the surface, right. But that's part of the fun part is you try to put enough, just enough little tags in there that if someone was interested, they could go and dig a little deeper and find out all of that. But so the coal region was a neat place, and also in that it was had all of that layered on top, and then it's so there's a lot of history there, but then also a lot of music there. And then I think that really the thing that gets you into music is friendship, and is that so, especially when you're a younger person. The high school's a journey for everybody, but when you find those folks that you click with, and so you say, like, I like being with these guys, we're having fun, we can be creative together, and so I think that's the big thing that makes you say, this is for me.
But before all that, so you're born. Are you brothers and sisters? Do you have brothers and sisters?
No.
You're an only child.
I am, yeah, and
wow.
Grew up on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, and so I had a lot of time to just scream at the trees, and so I think I.
And now that you're older, you scream at the clouds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Were mom and dad musicians, or?
My dad had a guitar and played it a very little bit. As far as I have a couple nice memories of playing. I know my mom always talked about how my grandmother used to play the piano for dances in her hometown, and so I think there's probably a little family tradition there. But I think I think church had a lot to do with it, because my mom was active in church, and so that's really the place where you go every Sunday, you hear the same songs, and you hear the little old ladies sing up here, and the men sing down here. And so that's really where you get harmony. Or at least where I got harmony from, is from hearing that over and over and realizing that there's 3 melodies going on at the same time. And so I think that was a big part of it too, in school.
So when did the bug bite? When did you? What was your first instrument? What was the first instrument that you had?
I got kicked out of the elementary school band for playing trombone because I didn't practice.
Okay,
but I was interested in it.
Okay,
well,
but even before high school,
not kicked out. They didn't encourage me to.
They was like, don't bother, don't call us, we'll call you. Yeah, but you said your dad had a guitar. Did you pick that up and play it?
I did mess around with it a little.
Okay.
I had, back in the 80s, we had those rectangular cassette players that were you open the little trap and put the cassette in.
Yeah.
And I one thing I loved to do was take 2 of those when I was little, and sing onto one and then play that back and then sing along to it on a second one, and just try to then take this one and now play that back until the whole thing degraded.
How old were you when you were doing multi-track recording here?
I couldn't tell you, but it was just always, it was always, that was a fun way to do it with with what you had. So
did you know at the time what you were doing, or you just figured it out on your own?
Just playing around.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You're like Les Paul, man.
Well, I think he figured it out a lot better.
Well, but I mean, you're sitting there as I'm picturing like you're maybe earlier mid-teens, and you're doing with 2 cassette players. That's pretty cool. I mean, all joking aside, that's pretty intuitive for a young person to do that. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, and you've got a lot of time on my hands. So
yeah, I know you have to take a break from yelling at the trees, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So was the guitar like your first instrument? I mean, you said you played the trombone in high school band before you were asked not to come back. Was the guitar like your first instrument, or you really okay?
I mean, I would always like to pick up anything that I could try to hammer some notes out of, and that would be fun. But I think the guitar was something. I guess we just had one in my house.
Yeah,
had a good friend or 2 that were interested in it. Yeah. And so started to figure it out, and then eventually kind of figured out, hey, if we sit down and tune these 2 so they're together, then we could do this at the same time.
Yeah. So. Do you remember what that first guitar was? What brand?
First guitar was, I think it was probably a catalog kind of Harmony.
Okay.
Like not a, well, I know my dad had his guitar from when he was a kid, it would have been a catalog guitar from the 50s, and it was always in the house, but I stepped on it as a baby, so it didn't work. But I still have that, actually. But
do you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then,
sweet.
And then eventually I got a loaner of another like a K catalog archtops, and then finally got a, this was smack in the Bon Jovi era, so like I got a like an Ovation. Yeah. I think was my first my guitar was an Ovation.
Okay.
Hard to hold. You try to sit down and play those, and they like to scoot away from you.
Yeah. So. They like slide down with that parabolic back. Yeah. But I mean, they're not indestructible because that wood, the wood face, but almost indestructible. So you have the guitar, you're, and you said you had, kind of hooked up with friends and that. And what was like your big influence early on? Like, so we're talking like mid 80s or early 80s and that?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So who was like your touchstone influence then?
I think in the very beginning, coming from the generation I was, I was right at that space where junior high school was still hair metal, and all of a sudden, bang, it was the 90s stuff. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was Nirvana songs, just figuring out Nirvana songs, power chords and stuff on the guitar. Yeah. And then that was kind of a beginning. But then loving harmonies and loving that sort of thing, and also being in a place where you kind of had to find your own path, just being in the coal region. Mm-hmm. The next step from that hair metal thing is is going back in time and going to Led Zeppelin and going to stuff like that. And so I'm kind of settled on, I think Crosby, Stills and Nash is where I really like bands like that, to really hit the vocal harmony and like tune the guitar however you want, and that was probably the real starting point to go from I just figured out a couple of chords to trying to do something
a little bit more like the next level then.
Yeah, like to work something you really, if you work on it a little, this is something special.
Yeah. So during high school, during the power chord time, were you in bands then? I mean, were you in bands in high school? Were you?
No, not really. Okay. Just playing around with friends. I had friends that were in bands, but no, not really.
Okay.
Just I don't think I really got into that until towards the very end.
Okay.
Might jump in with someone like once in a while.
Yeah.
But right around the 11th, 12th grade, and after that, that's where it really started.
When did it really start getting serious for you? Like, when you were really like, I really want to do this and do it right. Is it about the end of high school when you were looking back and when you say the older stuff and you say Led Zeppelin, it's like, dude, that was the stuff I grew up with. But is that when it started getting serious with you or sometime after that?
Moving out of the house, like being in school, being in college, is where a couple of best friends of mine asked me to come and play with them.
Oh, okay.
And so that by that point I was in state college.
Okay, I was going to ask you where you went to school.
Yeah,
so, Penn State.
Yep, and that was those were salad days. To be to play in a bar band in your college town. There's not a lot more fun than that.
Yeah.
So and that was mostly mostly like Grateful Dead and Allman Brothers.
Okay.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
were you even back then in college and that, were you still kind of, as I kind of referred to you as journeyman? Were you just playing with different bands, or were you in like a established band or something where it was you and a group of guys playing?
So I guess I really came at it from the creative angle as even more than from the the part of it. The party band part of it has never really been my thing.
Good.
So I was always just liked the writing and the singing and the come up with stuff. And so, but that was a couple of best friends from my hometown. And that we had a band in college called Jack's Farm. They kept going a little while after I did, and they're still going today. God bless them.
Oh, so, wow! Cool.
Yep. So that I think we tried to get. We talked to a friend of ours who was a manager, our manager at work at the movie theater, into quitting his day job so he could be our band manager.
Wow!
And book us all over, and we got pretty busy. And
now you're still in college at this time.
Yep.
Wow.
So
what'd you major in? Because I'm thinking the major is kind of like
creative writing.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
English. So and so I was always coming at it from that end, from like the poems and stories and songs kind of end.
And that's good, because I was filing that away for later on. That how did that help you in approaching and crafting songwriting? That background or that degree or specialty in literature. Did that help you? Did that give you did that help you with songwriting? Did you apply any of that?
I think it did, although at the time it didn't. It felt like a big old waste of money, because then I had to go back to school again for something else to get a day job. But now as a middle-aged guy, I've realized that I just went to school for my favorite thing, and I get to do it for the rest of my life. So even though I'm still paying for it at 47, it was worth it.
Yeah. So when did you start songwriting? When did you start writing songs?
Playing with the cassette recorders back in the 80s.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you were writing songs pretty early on then.
Yeah, kind of cheesy derivative 50s stuff, because that's what my parents were into. So, but nothing that I really kept until probably until I started to play more often. And so the good part about that the education is that it teaches you not to be afraid to steal. And be humble and give credit where it's deserved, where you get things from. But that you kind of have to write 25 songs to get that one good one.
Right.
So not to be afraid to just let stuff sit in a notebook, and if it was good, you'll circle back to it.
Bingo. Yeah.
And then also that there's so much great music out there to kind of model things after or be inspired by, that I think that's where some of the genre bands are a lot of fun, because you can kind of, each genre has its vernacular, and so it's a good starting point. So like I love to play with was lucky to get involved with the Strickland family here in Williamsport, to meet Sean and Gary.
Oh, wow.
And now Sean's daughter's getting involved. But so that blues genre is one kind of language.
Yeah.
So those are one set of fun songs that are a little more, slide, open G and open E, and whereas the bluegrass thing is a whole nother vocabulary.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And
so you talked about the Stricklands and that. So you're in Penn State. You're in a band that you actually hired a manager. What brought you to Williamsport? And well, let's get back to the band though. So you got the manager. Did you leave just when you graduated, or how did
pretty
that?
Much. I mean, I think so. It was a lot of fun. We did it, I don't know, maybe 20 times a month or something. We were got busy.
20 gigs a month, and
we were
college?
Trucking there for a little bit. I probably wasted a little time and needed an extra year to get around to finishing, because I wasn't that focused.
But you paid your dues, though.
Yeah. That was the end of the 90s. That was before powered speakers and active.
Right.
So that was, you had to rent racks and stacks and have a 24-foot truck, and so I realize now that there's a couple sound guys that we bought their house. And so we would get that busy. But at the end of the week, we actually put money back for the first whole year and said, we're going to have a savings, and then we're going to pay ourselves a salary out of that savings. So that way, if there were ups and downs in the calendar, we could still
survive.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are pretty savvy at this. I mean,
I wasn't, but I had some, one of my big rules for everything is you got to make sure you're the weak link, because then you're going to be challenged by people who are smarter than you and better than you, and you're going to learn. and that's still a rule today. You know,
Yeah.
I love to kind of be the student in the band.
Yeah.
And so, the hard part was that it was so expensive to do. You know,
Right.
to rent lights, to rent PA, you know, to rent power amps
Yeah.
and speakers. And so we'd play all week, and then at the end of the week we'd be able to pay ourselves $100 because all the money just flowed from us right to
Yeah.
everywhere else. And so did that for a year or two, and realized that I was, you know, eating tuna fish and crackers for dinner,
Yeah.
and realized, okay, I think I need to just get a day job.
Yeah.
And so so then pretty much at the end of school, I mean, there's ups and downs to it. You know,
Yeah.
we were playing in Key West, and we got evacuated by there was an act of God clause in our contract that because there was a hurricane warning,
Yeah.
we had to leave. So we were supposed to play 6 nights, and we only played 2, and then we had to drive 30 hours straight home.
Right.
You know, 7 hippies in a camper.
So that puts it in perspective, because I was just kind of like, okay, they're playing like 20 gigs in and around State College or, you know, Williamsport. You guys were like in the camper van going to Key West to
Trying,
play.
you know,
Wow.
a little. I mean, it was they continued after me,
Yeah.
and were able to expand an awful lot. So then I finished school, and just decided that I needed to kind of take stock. And at that point, I was writing a lot, and we were playing. It was a great band and a fun band, and a jam band that was very creative.
Yeah.
But so then I got a job that was a lot of swing schedules, and I kind of put the bars aside for a couple of years. And because I was always awake when everyone else was asleep because of the swing schedules, I was always kind of in the kitchen while my roommates were out of the house, and I just recorded on the computer.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the songs that I still use to this day were probably written 25 years ago.
No kidding.
That way. And so
But you've graduated to computer now. You're not using the 2 cassette decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. It's a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So so you graduate. Is that when you made it over to Williamsport, or are you still in State College at this point?
Stayed in State College for a year or two till I met my wife, who was from Jersey Shore.
Okay.
Knew that I was something I couldn't pass up. You know,
Smart man.
I got it right the first time, and so then ended up here because she was from here.
Smart man.
Also put the music away for a good 5 or 10 years.
Okay. No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
So for 5 or 10 years, you didn't play at all, or you just?
I still wrote a little on my own. But
Okay.
then when I started getting guitars back out of the closet, they were all destroyed from being put away and warped and dried out. And then my kids were just little, and so and I was very busy trying to establish a career and a life, and so nope, didn't really play gigs at all for that time. And then we ended up here in Williamsport eventually, and that's when I kind of started to figure out, at that point, any credibility I had was long gone. So
Well, no, but you had the
started?
experience though. So I mean, like I said, you paid your dues, 20 gigs a month in college and camper to Key West. You paid some dues. When did you get back into it? When did you start like the?
I'd say around 08 maybe.
Okay. Oh wow.
2008 or 10. I had a boss at work who said there was a Celtic band looking for a guitar player, and there were 2 very, very talented players from the Williamsport Orchestra, and that they needed a guitar player. And so I called him up, just kind of cold called him, and said, "Hey, I heard about you. If you're looking for somebody, let me know." And that was a lot of fun for a couple of years because it was a repertoire I'd never played, and it was all instrumental. And so it was a lot of, like I was the student of these 2 very talented people who could play 3 hours of all melody, switch from melody to harmony on, wooden flute and fiddle, and called Lux Bridge.
No kidding.
Yep.
So you played with
Katie and Karen.
Okay. Was Carl Kirby with them, or?
So he's also a great guy. Yep.
Yeah.
And so when I met them, they were kind of home based at Purcell's in Lewisburg before it was
Right.
the Bull
Okay.
Run. They had that back room that was kind of had that fireplace,
Yes.
warm, scene. And so Friday nights they would have an open jam there. And all of those great folks like Carl were always there. So he knew them before I knew them.
Okay.
But he was, at that point, he was doing his other swing bands and stuff.
Okay, all right.
and
Because I
so-
know he was part of Lux Bridge for a while.
that was,
it? Yeah.
that was after. I was
after.
I was a little
Okay.
before that. And so we got, that was also fun because that was Friday nights,
Yeah.
go eat dinner and play, and we'd play an hour or two and then the session would happen. And
Okay, so it was a true Irish session then that they did.
yep, it was mostly it was entirely traditional instrument. I mean, there's always a lot of guitar players, but we'd get dulcimer and bodhrán and bouzouki and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I just brain dumped the question I was going to ask. So I mean, so this is '08. So you cold called, for what is essentially Lux Bridge, and you get the gig. So you're and playing Celtic and traditional music is not like walking into a bar band.
Right.
There's a tremendous learning curve there.
There was,
yeah.
And I because of David Crosby and Joni Mitchell and
Right.
alternate tunings,
Yeah.
I was pretty handy with Dadgad, which I'm sure helped.
Yeah.
And with Drop D and also with being percussive, so because there was no percussion,
Right.
So the guitar, half of the time you're muting and like chucka
Yep.
on the strings, creating percussion.
Yep.
And then also, they handled the melodic part
Right.
and all the harmony. So
Yeah.
I would just try to be dynamic and drop it down to maybe just droning a string or two, and then picking a moment to actually play a full rhythm or play chord changes.
Yeah.
And they were great. Again, like I said, you want to be the weak link. Like
Yeah.
they played circles around me.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
So two very talented ladies, and then
Yeah.
everyone else at those sessions was really good.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot. Great learning opportunity, and that's where the 6/8 rhythm in Firefly came from.
Okay.
Is basically just a jig, and
Yeah.
then, the bodhrán is Pete Walters from those jams.
Okay.
On that recording.
Now, when was that recording done? Because you had said that had been in the files for a while.
Well, that recording's a little dark because it was done over COVID during the lockdowns.
Okay.
And so I think that was I love those kind of spooky history songs. So I was starting to work on some of those, and then that one was just a bit of a departure there. But yeah, that was sometime spring and summer.
Okay.
During the COVID lockdowns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing as you're saying, a lot of times you're just doing, the percussion, you're doing the muted, because I try to keep up with the Celtic sessions they do at the back house. And if they get something where it's like, okay, this is well beyond, I said, it's always good that the guitar is a percussive instrument, so you can just
Right.
do the percussion stuff on there. And so I'm laughing as you're saying that because, oh yeah, I know what you mean.
You can always just drone that one string.
Yeah.
And just kind of find the rhythm and then let everybody else, that's part of the dynamic.
But again, I just want to reiterate that, playing Celtic and traditional music is not, there's a learning curve to it. You
Sure.
you look at it and say, this is easy, because the fiddles and the pipes and that are carrying the melody. This is easy. All I'm playing is chords. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I envy people that can do it. I can't, but I envy people that can. So you're now you kind of jump into the deep end of the pool here with Lux Bridge. How long were you with them?
2 or 3 years, maybe.
No kidding.
Until my second child was born.
Okay.
And I mean that family comes first, so that things got we're about to get very, very busy, so it was time to duck out.
Yeah.
But by that point, I was lucky to be able to just continue to write at home, and so
you didn't give it up. You didn't give it up with the second child. Like, you were still playing and still writing then.
yeah.
Okay.
I remember when my oldest was maybe 3 years old at that point, and there were definitely some gigs on the weekends where I would get home and I would pull into the driveway in the dark, and from the crack of her window open a little bit, I'd hear her go, "Hi, Dad," from upstairs. And I'd be like, "You're supposed to be in bed." But it was a lot to ask the whole family to kind of allow that lifestyle, because life is busy. And so at that point I figured, okay, I've talked him into an hour a week, or I've talked him into one night a week. Let's see how much I can. But even now, that's a bit too much. So, so I do have to be careful with, not to get too busy.
I think if you, as you're approaching this from that phase of your life, I admire you that you had, the foresight and the self-awareness to say, hey, family comes first, and it sounds like you met that balance. I mean, it wasn't a perfect, balance, because you applied a lot of that weight to your family, but you kept doing it a little bit during that, as opposed to giving it up altogether. So, commendable to you, but also to your wife and kids for allowing you to do that. So, so this is about what time frame then? Ballpark. I mean,
I guess that would put it somewhere in the early teens, 2000 teens, somewhere around then.
Okay.
And at that point, it was I was looking for bands and picking up odds and ends, like a gig or two at a time with a lot of different people. But one of the the calendar is tricky, especially with musicians who aren't don't always quite understand the whole science of the calendar.
Yes.
If you say you're going to be here on this time, then you got to be there at this day on this
right.
time. But, so like what I found was it was easier on my family if I was going to play music to just play it as a solo thing, because I didn't have to coordinate with anyone.
Correct.
So then there were a couple of years where I tried to really push my songs and play in bars anywhere within 2 or 3 hours a year on the weekends. And what I found was that whereas it was fun, it's also a bit lonely. It's a lot more fun to play with people, because you're like the singer-songwriter thing really traps you in the cowboy chords, or and then also bar rooms are it's an environment where people want to relax, not listen to your strange tales.
And you just anticipate my next question. Do you find, because you're doing the solo acoustic singer-songwriter thing in bars, it's not the conducive environment for that kind of act?
No, and eventually you say, well, I want this to be fun. So you say you slip in a couple, and then you just start saying, okay, I'm going to just play barroom songs that everybody can sing along with, which is fun too. But so I was always looking for those listening rooms, or those places like the King Street Coffee House that used to be in Northumberland. I think that's probably developed into the community zone now.
I don't know if you can draw a line between the two, but it's close to what they had with the old King Street Coffee House. And having played there a couple of times. Well, so dropping a bunch of names here, Bruce Barr. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bruce used to, for all intents and purposes, ran that thing. Bruce played with our band for a number of years until COVID, and he retired. So I don't know if you can draw the line, but that was the King Street Coffee House was a fun gig.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I think it was the only place where I was ever shushed as an audience member. Because I was sitting with Steve Belcher, and we were watching. I want to say we were watching Van Wagner.
Oh, okay.
And we were admiring what he was doing. So we were talking, as musicians do. We were like talking about the neat stuff he was doing. And I remember somebody coming over and being like, "Shh."
Oh yeah.
It was an intense listening room.
And you know what? That was my first experience kind of doing that. Now I did it with Bruce and Dave Jackson, a percussionist that's still with me, or still with us. Excuse me. But that was my first experience of doing that, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is a bit intimidating." And I hadn't started writing songs at that point, but but bouncing off this whole King Street Coffee House and the listening rooms, there weren't a lot of them at the time. There weren't a lot of places where you could go and it was you and people actually there actively listening. And
there still aren't, which is what makes what you're doing at Backhouse special. From the point of view of the writer. Like it should be a neat spot.
You offline, we're going to talk about you and I have had similar experiences in life, and giving up the music and all that, but and then getting back into it. But I don't mind going and playing covers, but and if you would ask me 10 years ago, would you play a whole set of original music that you've written? I said, well, dude, I haven't written anything. But now that I've, started writing, I would much rather go play a place that wants to hear original music. But even now, there's very few places like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That part's a tough haul, and so you gather that while you can. You look for those places, but the playing the covers is how you learn, and it's like forms, and I think it's also actually helps with the writing to have that huge repertoire of things, especially like coming out of kind of the jam band thing is like if we've taken a song, we've completely rewritten it, doesn't resemble the key or the chords. Is it really still the song that it started out as? And, and so eventually it gives you that chance to say, I've learned how songs are put together, and I've learned some cycles of songs, and now I can just stick some words in there.
Right.
And so I think that's where learning a lot of different types of music helps. Learning all those Celtic songs led to having that sense of, the trick with that Celtic music was jigs and slip jigs and reels and hornpipes and learning how to play those rhythms. But it also, then you hear a song like That's It, or like the other one by the Grateful Dead, which is in 6/8, and it doesn't click in your mind. Okay, this is a jig rhythm, but it's very psychedelic and electric.
Yeah.
And so, until you get with a bunch of guys and you're like, well, let's play a jig. Just play the other one and it'll turn into a jig.
Yeah, right.
And so all of those things you learn from playing different music really inform the writing.
Yeah.
So just playing a lot and keeping chops up and exploring different types of music, I think, makes the original stuff you get to play better.
Yeah.
And makes it more meaningful. And also it is fun to be in a room where people actually like it.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot more fun to play for people who are dancing and giving you back energy, than to try to force a whole bar to listen to your.
Yeah, because one thing that Dave, a percussionist in our band, said early on when him and I got together, you have to realize at some point that we're just beer and wine salesmen. We're trying to keep butts in seats to get them, and there's a reciprocity between those kind of audiences. If they're up dancing or they're, but the most time, your background, your background music, they're talking and what have you. So yeah, I agree with you. It's just, it's so refreshing and so nice, and it spoils you to go into a place that, people are actually listening to you. And pay dirt is if they're, listening and enjoying your original songs.
Yeah.
Talking about, the different, the Celtic and the trad and stuff. Garcia started out as bluegrass on banjo, and then, everybody thinks of him as this, this ethereal jam. And no, man, you listen to a lot of that stuff. It's, jug band and traditional music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even his lines that he plays are so staccato and so many notes packed in. And you can tell he came out of an instrument that didn't sustain.
Right.
He had to pack a lot of notes in to keep it moving.
So talking about Garcia and all that, so who's as you blossomed as a musician and a songwriter, who do you kind of reference back to? Who's your touchstone, or is it too many to mention?
Probably a lot, but I think because of vocal harmonies is a big thing. So I love the Jayhawks.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And even lyrically, the Jayhawks are a band that doesn't rhyme for no reason.
Right.
It's almost like a free verse type of poetry instead of being so stuck in those end rhymes that can be forced and clumsy. And so they're very smart about using rhyme in a way that if they want to shock you, they'll intentionally not rhyme a line.
Yeah.
Because they want to emphasize it. You know? So so the Jayhawks are a big one that combine.
Interesting.
They combine lyrics that are impressionistic, like just vague enough that you think like, I think I know what they're talking about, but do I really? So your own imagination gets involved when something is impressionistic like that.
Yeah.
And then also their vocal harmony is amazing. Yeah. And so they really combine all of that, like great writing, great singing, and then the guitar player Gary Loris is he's actually a really clever guitar player too, and that he has that. It's almost like a mock pedal steel thing that he can do.
Yes.
Even though he's doing it with a fuzz face and an SG, and there are times when he puts that on and it's over. It's this giant cosmic fuzz, but he can also play major scale. Like he's not a guitar player that's stuck in that pentatonic like Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of thing. You know, like that I love major scale in music because it's the easiest way to harmonize, and if you can move it around a little bit modally and learn to slide that scale up and down across keys, you can say, you hear like the Allman Brothers take the same melody in a minor song that might be in G, but in A minor they're playing the same line, but now it's in A minor, so it's minor. You know? So all that stuff is kind of contained in the Jayhawks, I think. Yeah,
they're a great band. And I don't know if it's a bad thing about it or maybe it's a good thing, but my introduction to them was their cover of "Bad Time."
Yeah,
and so and I think they're well known enough for that cover that it's like I just watched. As a matter of fact, the last couple of weeks I watched a video of them, like their whole concert, and it was great stuff. And then they ended with that song. I was like, oh shit! And that was the song that they got the most response to. And I was like, well, that's too bad, because all the other songs were great, but that's what they're known for. That's a lot of people. But I guess that's good because, like I said, that was my introduction to them, and then getting to know them a little bit better. So
it's probably the right tool for the job too. If you're depending on the scene you're in, the crowd you're in, some people. I'm sure there are millions of us out there who would love to hear their music by them. But then also, if you're in that environment where people are coming to relax and they just got off of work and they're having a beer and they want to hear stuff they know. Yeah. It's also fun to be the cheerleader for that, even if means you're playing a cover.
Right. Yeah.
So
now, who else besides the Jayhawks?
Neil Young.
Okay.
I remember on the QSU station was one of the only college radio station that could reach where we lived. And so I definitely remember, junior high school and high school, that the radio station was a bit of a wasteland at that point. It was all just kind of hair metal on every, or like CNC Music Factory type dance music. And then, so you're scanning and all of a sudden, I remember the first time I heard Sugar Mountain by Neil Young and just coming onto the radio station and being like, and just being sucked in by one voice, one guitar, and that's it. Yeah. And it was just such a contrast from everything else on every station.
Right.
And so that was pretty quick. Yeah. It was like really into Neil Young right from the beginning.
Now, were you into him because of his songwriting, because of his guitar playing? Because he's very underrated as a guitar player.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So where was kind of your appreciation for him?
I think all of it because, songwriting and his voice as well. His voice is so unusual, but he makes it work. And then, and then also, being in high school in the 90s, when he was, put out some material with Pearl Jam, was playing with Pearl Jam. So like seeing him play with them was definitely like the two worlds colliding.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I mean? And then so his guitar playing is so he kind of makes you say like, what's that guy doing to his guitar? Just grabbing it by the strings and waving it over his head and beating on it. And,
I don't know if it was when he was on Saturday Night Live or there's some, I remember why. And he's just like, the guitar is a percussive instrument and like one or two strings break. Yeah. And you can see him and he's still just going on it. Yeah. But he, like I said, he's not appreciated as a guitar player, but his approach to the guitar is just a little different than now. It always the first thing that popped in my mind when we were talking about later Neil Young is that little swath of time when he signed to Geffen Records where he did the electronic stuff
Trans and
the Shocking Pinks and I followed him during that time. It's like, okay, Neil, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but we'll
more
follow
power
you.
To you, buddy. Yeah.
And then he got back to, I think it was Old Ways or something, or Old Wave or something like that. And it's like, okay, now he's getting back into what I knew Neil Young was. So,
right.
Wow. Yeah. So, So that brings us. Well, let's hold off to what you're doing now. Okay. We're gonna play a song called "Gone Train," and is that another older song like pre-COVID or?
Yep, it is an older song, probably way pre-COVID. Friend of mine, Chris Ratty, who I grew up with, who is one of the I mentioned best friends from the band. We recorded this in his studio, which I'm not sure quite exists anymore. But this was, boy, I couldn't even tell you. Is I don't know, maybe 2015 or 20 somewhere in there.
Okay.
I'm a sucker for my parents were a lot of country music in my family, not modern country, but like.
The classic country,
yes.
the
Hank Snow and Hank Williams. And Duane Eddy and so I'm a sucker for sad country waltzes. And so I have a couple of those, but I actually kind of have too many of those, and so I have to. So I have one that I mostly use that I would picture as I'm getting an album together, that'll be on it. Whereas this one I love, but it's kind of the oddball. And so, or it's kind of the extra. But this is a little different. Writers like Tom Waits and John Prine can, I think, are guys who are good enough to credibly cross the line and write from the point of view of the opposite gender. Whereas most writing that crosses that gender line is really bad. And just is full of presumptions and or cliches, and so I don't necessarily even introduce this song normally that way. I just let the listener figure out whatever they want to make of it. But it's kind of the idea of me trying to take a stab at something like Angel from Montgomery, that is a male writer writing from the female point of view.
And you're right. That's a tough sell. To do. And I didn't realize, because I was kind of late in the John Prine appreciation in my life, but I didn't realize that he wrote that song. So I always thought it was a female songwriter that wrote that song until I think it was soon after I retired, when I was playing in a band and they did this song, and he said, "Oh yeah, John Prine wrote this one." Really? Okay. But yeah, Tom Waits, when he's writing from the female, it's a female with a shootload of baggage.
Yeah, I love his song called "Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis." Which is, and the thing that I think is so special about that song is there's a twist to it at the end, but that even this perspective that he's writing from, what makes it so real is that even her dreams are modest. So she's basically writing about some things that are or may not be true, but even the fibs she tells are compromises. And that, so like, I think that's one of the things that it doesn't matter if it's a male or female character, because that's such a real thing that sometimes even our dreams are compromises. And I think that's really clever.
That's what I like about Tom Waits. I think of him and Townes Van Zandt as, you could make little movies of their songs. I mean, they're almost not cinematic in the grand scheme of cinematic music, but they're little vignettes of that could fit into either a short story or a short film. And wow. So Gone Train. This is, and I didn't realize it was this old. That song was 10 plus years old. Yeah,
that's why I appreciate the chance to have it air, because I haven't figured out what to do with it yet.
So I like it. Well, we're happy to have it on the radio station. We're also happy to have it here on the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast. So this is Gone Train, Chris Carithers, and we'll be right back after the train gets back to the station.
Start again before
Gone Train from Chris Carithers, and we're gonna talk about what you're doing now. So we lead into that with a song that's 10 plus years old. So when we before we caught the train, you were. So it's like the teens, the 20 teens, and that. You're in Williamsport, kind of doing the singer-songwriter thing, and that. Where have you kind of lead us up to now? Where are you at now? And how you got to where you are now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to figure out how to play on my own, but also, there's just some things you can't do without other people.
Right.
And so I was always on the lookout for bands, and always did enjoy kind of jumping in with bands a little or helping out. And so whenever I had a chance and I'd get to know a couple guys, we'd play for a little bit, and it was always, I'd always try to steer towards, hey, this is going well, why don't we write some songs?
Yeah.
So then there was a stint there with a band from Danville called the Swamp Bottom Blues Band, that a local author named John Menapace who's a novel writer, was working on pitching some novels to pitching novels as screenplays or scripts, and he thought it would help if he could make some kind of demos of the book with music. So then there's some other songs, there are a couple of songs there. There's this one of the songs that is on my old CD is he gave me a line of dialogue from his book and said, can you write a song around this? And that came out really well. And the band kind of all went separate ways, but it was fun to get that song out of it. And so just kind of always looking for places where I could find ways to write.
Yeah. Now, what CD is this?
So I had there's an album from maybe 5 years ago, more than that, a couple years before COVID, that I called Autobiography of a Thief.
Yep, we play a lot of stuff off that one.
Yeah. And that was those were just a big, just the tip of the iceberg of all these old songs that I have on computer drives, or on even back to the old, like the Tascam 4-track, things like that. And so some great guys from around here, Anthony Lalota and Jake Klein.
Oh my gosh!
They had reached. We talked a little bit about. They have Crotalis Records. I think they probably started that for their band Rattlesnake Gospel.
Okay.
And Echo and Sway there.
Jared Conti from Lock Haven. Yeah.
Great local creatives. We're really lucky in this area that there are a lot of great folks. And guys with great talented players and writers. And so they talked to Anthony about Crotalis Records, and so they helped out with just I had these songs that had been sitting around for 20 years, and I said, hey, take these. There's one or two that I would have left off of there had I gone back and done it over, but I come out of that generation that you picture albums as a chapter book, and songs should belong together.
Right.
And sound like they belong together.
Yeah.
And so some songs that are on there serve the whole album better than they stand as standalone songs. But those are also learning to record. And so a lot of those songs were just things that I never really meant to see the light of day. They were just songs I made in the closet.
So did you go back and re-record them?
Nope. I just...
Oh, okay. So they were the stuff that you'd worked on at home with the Tascam or the computer and that.
Yeah.
And just put them on the album. So it doesn't sound... I've listened to it through, and it sounds like it's a cohesive unit. Not a thematic... It sounds like a thematic unit, but also just sonically. It sounds like you went and recorded them specifically for this album or the CD.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah.
They just were...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, are you doing the instruments, all the instruments on it, or do you have people come in?
There's one song that I have an old college roommate plays cello on.
Okay. But the rest is all you.
Yes,
Wow.
which is why there's no drums,
Yeah.
no keyboards, no only things that I can record in my closet.
Got it.
Where a closet that's really a walk-in closet with just a computer and a mic stand and a 57, and that's it. No condenser mics or anything, and so. But that song I mentioned is called "Color Me Blue."
Yeah.
That was a quick demo that I put on there, but there is a band version out there floating around somewhere. I'll have to dig out. But so was always looking for opportunities like that to get to meet some musicians. But
Right.
it is a little insular. Everybody's doing their own thing, so you kind of have to. It's not something that happens overnight, and so had to bow out of Lux Bridge because I had another kid, and then played on my own for a little while and continued to write. And at one point, was able to do some fun gigs. Actually, here when this radio station started, they had a band scramble. That was a lot of fun. So they took musicians from all the bands in town and just put their names in a hat and then just pulled them randomly and said it was a fundraiser for something. And so then it was kind of like a Battle of the Bands thing, but without the competition.
Yeah, good.
So
Okay.
then pulled names out of the hat and said, okay, you five are a band, now you five are a band. So you ended up having to play with people you didn't even know.
Okay.
And then there was, then the date was booked maybe a month out.
Oh, okay. So interesting. Okay, so I'm getting some ideas for stuff to do in the future. So you contacted them. They put all these musicians' name in a hat.
Yeah.
And then you had a month or a certain period of time to rehearse. Really?
Yep, to write the material. And so, we chose to just write songs. And it came out really well. And again, like every time you get involved with somebody, you make some new friends and you realize like these are good partners, and so a couple songs that I still play today came out of that. And the one thing I think would be good to do different is to have a bass player hat, a drummer hat, rather than...
Well, that was my next, without trying to pick your brain about this for future use. I was going to ask you, I said, did they put all the drummers in one hat? Did they put all the... So everybody was just you could have had two bass players.
We did. We ended up with pretty much a band of bass players. So then we did cheat a little. We just said, hey, I'll trade you a bass player for your... You know what I mean? And but it was a lot of fun. So we ended up with
did you get like first or second draft picked? I mean,
no, I think we just kind of cheated. Probably it was probably just cheating.
That is
so we ended up with a B3 player, a bass player. I played guitar, and we ended up with a rapper. And so we kind of tried to write like soul songs that he could rap over. It came out really good.
Oh wow!
The bass player was a bit of a that. We had a metal song in there because he was a metal player. But and so Joel Rook is his name, another nice guy from town. So that was fun.
Okay.
Just odds and ends, things that pop up along the way, and then at some point, that led to a fundraiser for this station that was a singer-songwriter thing, which is where I met Sean Strickland. And there were two or three of us that played at that. I think Ron Flieger and Sean and I.
Oh my gosh!
It was at one of the parks. We played. And so at that point, those were the only guys in town playing their own songs. Mm-hmm. And so. So, I was impressed by them and still am. Ron has that voice of like a Chris Cornell,
oh my
Ron
gosh,
can really wail, and Sean has the kind of voice that most guys pretend to have, but Sean really has that like growl.
Yeah.
So then, a couple years later when Sean was looking for a guitar player for Dirty Mojo, got in touch with him and then have been playing with them for 5 or 10 years now.
Okay.
And Sean's another guy who plays in a whole bunch of bands. So I think it's the adult perspective now on music is I like these guys.
Yeah.
I'll be friends with them forever. So we'll play when we want to play. And then maybe somebody gets into a side project for a year or two and then we'll come back again and play later. And, so.
Well, I mean, that's half the battle is finding a group of guys or, gals or, that you're just comfortable with and you enjoy their company. you know, and you know, you're fortunate to find that in a couple projects. I mean, you're really fortunate to find it in one project, but a couple projects. Yeah. But I think again, it speaks to just from you know, from my perspective anyhow, just the personalities and the community vibe with the musicians in this area.
Yeah.
You know,
we are lucky that we have that here.
Well, you had mentioned that, I think, in the first part, but you know, it's something that I didn't appreciate until I started doing this gig with the radio. That we have, I mean, just your perspective. You start out with a Celtic band. You went into a blues band. You did the singer-songwriter thing. You know, threw the names in the hat and you pulled out, you know, a R&B and a rapper. We've got a tremendous swath of different styles and genres, and more than a lot of really good quality singer-songwriters in this area. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, and I still haven't figured out how that happens here.
I think being a small city, being within range of some other small cities, and being able to draw from, you know, with you know, have commuters who come here from an hour around, and then also we have the Blues Association that's put a lot of work into this community musically. Yeah. And so guys like Doug McMahon and guys that have been involved in the Blues Association from the beginning, right. That have been working actively to build things here. You know, you have the Uptown Music Collective that's churning out brilliant kids, you know, yeah. And then you have, so you end up with guys in town, you know, that could just play circles around anyone. You know, you have like Shane Kelly Woodward on slide or Gabe on slide. You know, so I think that future is to take that and find ways to make it more viable for folks to keep it going and to really, you know, what you guys are doing with Backhouse, or you know, to try to find. I think the venues themselves. I don't know if it's always been a bit of a challenge, I'm sure, even before COVID, but now even, you know, how do you keep music alive in that it has to be a passion for the venue, because there's really, there's not much, there's really not much in it for them, you know, other than they like to hear you. You know, we enjoy going up to Renova and playing at Good Neighbor. You know, we enjoy a lot of rooms where the folks give you a home. Yeah. You know, and so,
but you know, you had mentioned the venues. We're fortunate not only to have just the artists and the songwriters and the bands, the quality of those, but also we, for a comparable sized town, we have a number of venues that you know, granted, you know, some of them are, you know, cover bands and it's dance bands, and that's cool. But we have a number of, you know, like the Bullfrog and New Trail, and you know what that, you know, and you hit something where you feel at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have colleagues in another city about comparable size to us in the South, and you know, because we're friends on Facebook, and to a person, how are you getting so many gigs? Well, there's no place to play down here, or you're playing and you're not playing for any money. You're playing for exposure, or you're playing for drinks or tips. And I said, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but you know, the venues are, you know, very accommodating, but you're right, it's a bit of a challenge after COVID. So you play with Sean and the Dirty Mojo, and you're also in Sylvan Dell Stragglers. Which I think is one of, you know, I don't like to play favorites because everybody brings someone to the party, but I like y'all's vibe. I said if the original intent for our project was going to be something like that, and we're kind of off into a jam band thing now, but I really love what you guys are doing. So tell me how that whole thing came about, because you were a late joiner to that project. So
that was a happy accident, actually. We were double booked with one of the places in town. Accidentally double booked. A blues thing with Sean and with and then also at the same time booked accidentally booked those guys, booked the guys that would. I think they were actually already kind of had the name the Sylvan Dell Stragglers because they're from the Sylvan Dell neighborhood of Southside.
And this is Tommy Derone.
Yep. Levi Stover.
Levi.
And Seth Nolan.
Okay. All right.
And so we all get to the same bar, 2 different bands who want to play. Which I've been in those situations in the past that can kind of escalate to fisticuffs and stuff. But in this case, it was kind of like, half the people get mad and go home, and the rest of us were standing there like, well, we're here. Why don't we just all play?
Heck yeah.
So we just played. And having just played kind of sight unseen, so we just played. And, that it's an easy transition from the Grateful Dead into bluegrass and back. And,
oh my gosh.
And so it turned out that we just had, like, we were able to get off the ground immediately, because we just had a shared repertoire. Yeah. So right from that night, and they're also just guys I respect a lot.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's fun to be around them. And, and musically there was a lot of common language there. And even it's pretty rare to have something worked out where the lanes are pretty, like where the band itself is well rounded, and so like it's fun. Like Tom and I love harmonies, and so Tom sings most of the melodies, and I like to sing with Tom. Put harmonies on top of Tom, and that's one aspect of the band. But then the other aspect is, we love to improvise, and Levi, as the bass player, is a guy who can switch gears like that, and he plays upright or plays electric, and so then Levi is fun to to just in between the songs, or get a little spacey and break a song down and get weird. And, it's fun to play that way with him because he's a really good listener. And then Seth is also a good listener on mandolin, and also is just a guy who can hear what you do and give it back. And then and so it's a band that can be a vocal band for one verse, and then a jam band in the middle, and then a traditional bluegrass band for a little bit. And
maybe all in the same song.
Yep. Yeah. And our real trick is we have some traditional repertoire, but also, the fun part is taking songs that no one's expecting to hear that way, and giving them that vibe, giving them that bluegrass kind of train beat thing. And so it's a lot of fun because you get to play people, you get to pick songs that people know but don't expect, and then you get to improvise a little and sing harmony, and also just have fun driving to the gig with some nice guys. So.
And I've seen you guys enough to it's like, okay, you first of all the guys in this band, all 4 of you guys are just super nice guys. I can't imagine you guys just not liking each other and respecting each other for not only just musicianship, but just as people. And that's, when you find that is just such a blessing.
It took me 20 years to find it again.
So coming to this, because you guys are I would put you in the category of jam band, which I'm not a big genre thing, but I would put you guys in. What's a typical number of songs you have in your set list for a 2-hour show? What's your typical number?
I'd say it depends on the room. We opened for
So Steep Canyon Rangers, you guys opened for them at the Community Arts Center.
Yes, and that was a traditional bluegrass crowd.
Yeah.
And so that was one where we had to keep the songs pretty tight. Pretty short and pretty traditional.
You don't think they would have appreciated?
We were definitely getting a vibe from that there was a generation of folks that was a bit different, and so they
interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Because
I would think their demographic would sway a little to the younger kind of progressive bluegrass, but maybe not, because they are very traditional. Okay, all right,
or
cool.
at least the crowd that night was.
Okay, so it is Williamsport.
Yeah, so we could kind of read it in the room that was more of a 3-4 minute songs. And so I think a good rule of thumb is, a dozen songs an hour, like 5 minutes a song or something. But then depending, we play, especially private parties or things where we're playing for our friends, and our kind of our crowd, where they like it to get weird. And so some of those songs are longer. And I've definitely, we had right before COVID, we had a reunion at the State Theater for our old for Jack's Farm, our old band,
Okay.
from college, and I think we played a half an hour, and we played Whipping Post for a half an hour.
Okay, you got us beat. The reason I asked that is because we just played down in Sunbury a couple weeks ago, and we were down to 2 songs on the set list, but we had 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I leaned back to Dave, and I said, dude, what are we going to do? He said, don't worry about it. We got it.
Yeah.
And the last song we play is Sublime's Bad Fish.
Oh, okay.
Sublime's Bad Fish, and we did that for like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it's always the jam band thing is like, if the audience is with you, you can stretch them out.
Sure. Especially if they're dancing or having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the fun ones. And then
it is fun. It really is. But you also, and one of the things that's kind of gelling with us, but you had mentioned it, is the ability of each person to kind of listen, and not be tethered to the ego of like, oh my gosh, I want to do this or that. You're listening to, and sometimes it's the percussionist that's kind of leading you down this trail, or sometimes, as you were saying, sometimes it's, the mandolin player or whatever. So to me, that's fun.
Yeah.
That is a blast.
Yeah, and I think that's actually almost the therapeutic part of playing.
Yeah.
In that, I think a good set of music, it's like having a 2-week vacation.
Yeah.
Like I can find that it's because you have to be entirely present for it. It's almost like a Zen thing where if you are going to improvise with a small group of people, it's completely nonverbal.
Yes.
And you have to listen while you're simultaneously contributing. And so it's the one thing that I found in life that forces you to clear your head, because if you suddenly your grocery list pops into your mind, or your boss or something you're frustrated with, you're gonna teeter totter and fall over. You're not in. So like in order to make it work, it's almost like a mindful emptiness thing where you have to you're only in that space.
Right.
It's just your ears and your fingers, and everything else has to disappear.
Yeah. And
so I find coming out of something like that, when it works, is recuperative.
Yeah.
It feels like a vacation.
Yep. And I know what you speak of. The one thing that I do keep a little bit of an eye on is, okay, is the audience with us? Is the audience following us? And to the most part, they do, just because, okay, you know what you're going to get. To me, that's the fun part too, is when they're willing to come along for the ride with you. Yeah. You guys played, I think I saw you one time down at New Trail, and you were, the people that were right up with you, they were with you. Mm-hmm. The rest of it, again, your background music, but it's kind of weird. I don't know if there's any other, the crowd that was right there with you, like right in front of you, they were with you. They were going where you guys were taking them. And that was just such a beautiful thing to see. It was really fun to watch you guys, but also the audience is kind of going with you on that.
And that's the fun part that I think the bluegrass scene is inherited from the Deadheads.
I agree.
Is that improvisational part, and also that community part of that there are great bands out there like Cabinet and all these kind of jammy bluegrass bands that do that. And that
Billy Strings. I mean, he's kind of the flavor of the year or decade, but he kind of does that. So he can jump from like that traditional bluegrass world into sitting in with Fish for how many songs he sat in with them, and I forget where they were, but now, the one thing I don't like about bluegrass, and I do love bluegrass, but the one thing is, how many notes can you fit into a measure?
Sure.
That's, I appreciate the skill, but,
yeah.
And it's, mandolin, fiddle, guitar players. It's like, okay, that's pretty impressive. You fit that many notes into a measure.
I think that part of the tradition is one of the things that does unite it with other genres, because it's almost like Yngwie Malmsteen or Steve Vai or something.
Oh yeah,
players that
Good point.
that can shred and that are going for that. And I think when that music came out compared to like country and western music, that was kind of that it's funny to think of bluegrass was like the speed metal of its day.
Yeah,
But, and I think the real melodic, mournful kind of high lonesome part of it is the part of it that I think artistically is a little easier to draw from, than just the chops. So we definitely were faking that part, but we just try to play the right music.
Again, it's just everybody brings something to the party. The guys that are fitting, the guys and gals that are fitting 36 notes into a measure versus that high lonesome. Everybody brings something to the party, and it's like that with bluegrass and even stuff that's going on here in this area. So, so you've been with the Stragglers for how long did you say?
2 or 3 years now, maybe.
Really?
About 2 years.
I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, I want to say about 2 years.
Wow.
And we keep a light schedule because everybody has families. And so once or twice a month for us is enough. If not too much. Like times when it piles up, there's things we don't want to pass up. And so sometimes we get too busy and then you're sleeping on the couch. But then, it's a little, if everybody, it's more fun and more relaxed, to take it easy. And then also we have a lot of material. We have a lot of original material that we haven't been able to really get refined yet. Mm-hmm. So we, one of these winters, I'm hoping we'll finally get into the studio and get all that stuff right.
I hope so, because you guys haven't recorded anything with this project, have you?
A little bit of home recordings,
right? But I mean, nothing like with the intention of getting it out there in one form or fashion, correct?
Yeah. We have some pretty good quality recordings.
Sure.
But not enough to make a full EP, a full album yet.
Yeah.
But we easily could. It's just priorities. There's no rush, and at some point in the next 5 or 10 years, we'll get around to it. So.
Well, we're going to talk about the future here after. One of the things that you're doing now is that you're a songwriter, obviously. Tell us about this year, because you've there are some of us that think we're good songwriters. There are some of us that they're good songwriters, but you have been objectively identified as a good songwriter. So tell us about that.
Again, I appreciate your kind words, but that was through the Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriting Contest, mm-hmm. which anyone who's interested can send songs to that or look that up. The easiest way to find it is through the website for Smoke Country Jam mm-hmm. Bluegrass Festival. Yeah. A talented guy named David Pinelli runs it, who you can also find online. And being kind of a big amateur history buff, and I love, I just love weird stories and local weird stuff, and so have about half and 3/4 of an album, half an album's worth of kind of strange tales of Pennsylvania that I've been working on over time. Really started over COVID because there was just a lot of downtime, mm-hmm. and then also I've always loved ghost stories, and so I started to take some of the ghost stories from places where I grew up, or some of the kind of historical tales, and try to put them down as songs. And so that Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriting Contest has been going on for quite a while, 10 or 20 years, and so. So that was the perfect place to send those, those songs that I've been refining for a long time. And they're actually in progress towards becoming a nonprofit, so they can start to get that out into libraries and schools and start to take all those great songwriters that have contributed over the years, a long legacy of folks that have great songs. So this year I got lucky and found a place to put that material. Got to play it at Smoke Country Jam, which was a lot of fun, and got to get a little, it's fun to get a little acknowledgement.
Well, what you have successfully skated around is that you were acknowledged
for not one but two songs through the Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriters competition. Tell us about that. Tell us about the songs that you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first song, the song that won first place is based off a ghost story from my hometown.
Okay.
It's called Peddler's Grave. You can look it up. It was the site of the first recorded murder in Northeast PA in the Cole region, Schuylkill County specifically.
Okay.
And so that was an old just kind of site that we used to hike out to as kids. It's 5 miles up on the mountaintop away from town. And so it was just a spooky place to go check out.
And it was actually called Peddler's Grave.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I did my best to fact check the lyrics, so the lyrics are pretty accurate in what happened and the identity and what happened. But one of the things, it's always a balance with songs, how much information to give and how much to hold out, because the mystery really is what draws the listener in, and being able to paint their own impression onto what they're hearing. So the twist there is that the mystery was always, why is the ghost still here? The answer is in the song, but I was almost tempted to leave it out. It was almost a better song without the answer.
Wow.
But one thing that I tried to do in that lyric was really use that incident, that landmark and that story as kind of like the original sin of the Cole region. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, so I tried to paint it as this guy's ghost has been here for the entire history of, as long as we've been here. Yeah. So, the first verse or two introduces the story of hey ghost, why are you up here on this mountain? And then the song kind of switches to the point of view of what this fly on the wall, what this observer has been able to watch as the history of this place unfolds. Wow. And so so I tried to bring in things like the Molly Maguires, things like the bootleg Cole Rebellion, and things like population decline and how ups and downs, all the way to at the end. There's some kind of graphic imagery about that is trying to tie together the images of blood from the murder with red and orange creeks from sulfuric mine drainage, things like that. Really it's trying to take I would consider it kind of the original sin of northeastern PA. Yeah. And so as a place I love and celebrate, and I'm not picking on the area.
No. I mean,
because it's definitely just a neat history of things that's out there.
And it happened. and if we acknowledge that it happened and we learn from it, okay, good. But if we say, oh no, that didn't. No, it did. It what makes this region. It's just like your life. There's some things in my life is like, I wish I would have done that different. But it's made me who I am today. But it's made this area what it is. So to acknowledge that. So that one won first place. Really quick, tell me about the one that won second place.
So the one won second place is called Prince of Pennsylvania. All right. Everybody around here. Everybody seems to have in their family history, they have their Prince Farrington story, who was our local bootlegger in County.
All right.
So he was our gangster.
Yeah.
I'm sure other writers have approached this, I think, and some, you could approach it from different points of view, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I kind of, I love, I love the Byrds. I love Woody Guthrie. And so there's the Pretty Boy Floyd song that's on Sweetheart of the Rodeo by the Byrds. That's a Woody Guthrie song, an outlaw song.
Yeah,
so I approached this story from that perspective of like the Robin Hood angle of it, because he is a popular figure here still for a few reasons. And one is that he spread the wealth a little bit. So he would approach farmers and offer them, I'll pay you double if you plow under your crop and you plant rye for me right now. and so a lot of folks did that.
Sure.
And so what I did was I did a little research and I tried to just take the best quotes about Prince Farrington that seemed the most cinematic and just lay them out into a song. So the best quotes from Prince Farrington, like one of the things he was asked, because he was originally from down south, and he was asked why he chose why he chose the Susquehanna Valley to bootleg in, and one of his answers was that he liked these close-mouthed Dutchmen, which was his way of saying that the Amish wouldn't rat on him. that the Amish would keep his secrets, and wouldn't go telling the cops. And
Interesting.
So, and so that's a really interesting quote. You don't picture like an Al Capone type bootlegger who likes to
working with the Amish.
Yeah.
And
so
what time frame did he? What time frame was he?
I guess it would be Prohibition, right? So it would be so he. And other parts of the legend are, all the limestone. We have a lot of caves and a lot of limestone in the Nippenose Valley and Jersey Shore and Avis and up north, and that that the limestone water had some effect on his product. It made it harder for agents to trace the contaminants, that he would be in the streams, to trace them back to his stills. So he put, they need a water supply for stills, so he put those on the creeks that are tributaries to the Susquehanna.
Wow.
And so, and then when you talk to, old timers and, even within my own family, or, I remember hearing stories about, because he really distributed his operation. So he had, there's plenty of buildings now that when you go on, you see places up for sale around here, and sometimes they put in here that it was a Farrington house and that the shed's still out back or something.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, so there's a lot of places that were caches for barrels that maybe had,
Funny, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Because I've seen that. It's like, a Farrington house or something. It's like,
yeah.
I thought it was like a furniture store or something. I was like, okay, all right. So now I know.
Yeah, that had maybe had a shed with a false floor or something like that, where maybe there would be a bushel, barrels stored, or and some of the stories that, as I've started to play this song out places, I often at the end of the night, some folks will come up and say, "Hey, I heard your song about him. I want to tell you this story." And then I get the story.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and so like one of the stories I got was that someone had a family member, like a grandpa or a great uncle or something, who, when he was younger, once a week they would go to a certain car dealership and be loaned the nicest, newest car on the lot. They'd take it out into the countryside in Jersey Shore and load the trunk up with cases, and then they would drive it to D.C. to the Senate building, pull into the cul-de-sac at the Senate building, and a well-dressed, distinguished secretary lady would come out and direct where to unload, and then they would. And this was during Prohibition, but that our area was actually supplying D.C. During Prohibition. So you hear a lot of stories like that. And so
funny! What a great way! I mean, that again, as a songwriter, you want to connect with people, That's fantastic. That really is. We're going to get to Prince of Pennsylvania as we close out the show, but right now, leading from this segment into our final segment with Chris, we're going to play Peddler's Grave, which is an actual spot on the hill up near Ringtown, correct?
Yep. Between Shenandoah and Brandon.
All right. Yep. All right. So this is the acknowledged winner of the Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriters Competition for 2024, correct?
Yep.
All righty. Award-winning songwriter Chris Carithers, Peddler's Grave, right here on the Rec Room Radio, our podcast.
Oh, peddler, why do you wrong? Why do you haunt these hillsides so far from your home? Up above the coal fields, the mine shafts and the slopes. Lay down by the waterside, rest your rattling bones. I was hereabouts before the hard stone coal was found. Before they pulled the anthracite up out of the ground. Walked my circuit up and down the mountain paths to trade. My horse and sledge beside me every mile along the way. Passing off the Reading Road, August summer's day. Crossing on the forest path, westward on my way. Ben Bailey followed from afar, he shot me in the back to steal the jingling copper coins from my saddlebags. Oh peddler, why now do you roam and haunt this lonely mountainside so far from your home? Trouble these coal fields, the mine fires and the slopes, howling in the wilderness, wailing by the road. I was here before them Molly boys, they cut the bosses down. The preacher damned them all to hell, cursed the town to burn. Franklin Gowan sent them all to judgment and to hang. I watched the Reading Company blow bootleg coal holes in. Before the dragline shovels came, stripped the mammoth vein. Pile the overburden high, summit slate and shale. Heard the breathless prayers of workers trapped beneath the rock. The coal trains, they don't run no more, but the whispers never stop. Oh peddler, why still do you roam? Why do you haunt these lonely mountain woods around my home? Up above the coal fields, the strip mines and the coal. Weeping in the wilderness, singing mournful songs. Strike me down and plunder from my wares. But why'd you kill my gal, a gentler creature never err? Roam the lonely mountain trails to pull a peddler's sled. You left her lying in the woods, and I ain't found her yet. Grass it withers and will never grow again. Where snow lies deep upon the ground but melts here where I lay. And now the crystal waters turn a deeper, darker shade. My blood runs red from out my grave and colors every stream. Oh peddler, why don't you quit your roaming? No more haunt this lonely mountain so far from your home. Release these old coal towns, boarded up now and cold. Lay down by the waterside, wander here no more.
Peddler's Grave, an award-winning song by award-winning songwriter Chris Carithers. That's wild. I mean, as a songwriter, you start out, when you first start, honestly, you didn't sit down when you were a kid and say, "Yeah, I'm going to be an award-winning songwriter." How cool is that? I mean, how rewarding is that?
Yeah, it's great, and I think they're doing good work in that there's we have so many stories, and and such a rich kind of musical resources, so many musicians and so many stories to get all that PA history out. Our area has been a part of so many changes and transitions in so much of our country. Even back, the Susquehanna, you hear stories like the Cannon Hole story and things that, to the French Indian War and to previous, and the Yankee Pennamite War and all these, wild stuff that happened.
Sullivan's March through the Revolutionary War, which went up the North Branch into that northern area. Yeah. That's the funny thing about the poor Susquehanna River. We have the Susquehanna River. We have two branches. Susquehanna River flowing into the main branch, Susquehanna River. It's like, dang, could they have named him something different? But it makes it what it is, and the Susquehanna Valleys and that. But you're right. There's from coal mining to Native American to the French and Indian Wars. You had said the Revolution. I mean, there's a lot to draw from. Yeah, around here.
One thing a project I'd like to continue to work on gradually is those kind of strange, fantastic tales of Pennsylvania. And you mentioned that Native American history, and one of the songs that I have to find a home for is a bit of historical fiction that blends like the Wyoming massacre, the Wyoming Valley, with the Mary Jemison captivity story.
Right.
And those things are separated by 10 or 15 years, but if you kind of mash them together and put them in the first person point of view, it's very dramatic. Yeah. And so Mary Jemison was someone who you can Google and look up, but she had in a sad way, a sad and fascinating story, in that her life was really uprooted twice by both sides.
Yes.
And so she
didn't, when she was rescued, I mean, she didn't transition back. I think the mindset at the time was, once we rescue her, she'll be fine. Yeah. And she wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And having been captured as a child.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting points from that narrative, if you read a little about, and you can't really tell how much is romanticized or fictionalized and how much is real. But from the point of view of a songwriter, you don't really have to.
Right. You can use some dramatic license in there.
What tells the best story. Yeah. And so my song is called Deerskin Slippers, because one of the moments from her narrative that is really interesting is during her captivity, at one point, she and her younger brother were given moccasins by her captors, and her mom had a chance to pull her aside and say, "They put these shoes on your feet because they're going to keep you. So whatever you see happen now, you're going to survive, so you'll be okay. So don't do anything crazy. Don't try to run."
Right.
And that was the point where her parents were, where the sad part happened, but it also signified that she would be adopted. Yeah. And so her parents said, her mom pulled her aside and said, "They put these deerskin slippers on your feet. That means, it's time for me to say goodbye to you." But,
wow.
But then you mentioned the Sullivan's March. So then after, at the later end of her life, she's now lost one family, to one side. And at the later end of her life, when she's living in New York with an Iroquois village, and then her second family is now destroyed by the British, by the colonists and by the British.
Yeah.
And so she lost two homes twice to both sides of that war. And so I think her tale is really interesting because it spans, both sides of that conflict. And then just for fun, because the Queen Esther story and the Bloody Rock, if you're from the coal region, is a bit of history from the Wyoming Valley, which is a bit gory, but it's a ghost story.
Yeah.
So then to combine those things together. So I did take a little liberty and place some parts of Mary Jemisin's story into the Wyoming Massacre to kind of tie them together.
Yeah. Huh.
But that's there's a lot of potential out there for all of these great local stories, and I think there's an album's worth of material there. I just haven't quite fleshed it out yet because it can't all be minor key ghost stories,
right?
So you need some fun stuff in there too. So that's where the Prince Farrington song would give that album a lift.
Yeah.
So I need to get a couple more that are a little more on the fantastic side. And
we haven't even mentioned the lumber. You haven't mentioned the Underground Railroad. I mean, as I said, there's such a wide variety of historical stuff in this area that you can draw from. Wow.
Yeah. And we're big fans of the squonk in my household.
Okay.
So like that's our local cryptid. So there's a song. I have a song about him, and so some of that I think will make a neat record.
Yeah. So. Oh my God. Well, I'm already I'm already interested in it just from being an amateur historian as you are. So, so what else do you have besides kind of working on this? You have the Stragglers. Mm-hmm. What else are you working on? What else is going on with you?
So for 2 or 3 years, I've been working on a full band record that is coming along well, but just incrementally.
Now, where are you recording? Are you recording this at home?
No, but because I can't accommodate drums and keyboards in my tiny closet. So I've been working on it at 8 days a week down in Northumberland.
Oh, okay, with Paul Smith and
who is a great guide in that recording process.
Yeah.
And I've learned the hard way that it's worth waiting for, in that some of my oldest friends and I have musical partners that I've tried recording a whole bunch of ways, and sometimes you spin your wheels and you don't get a lot that you can keep. And so if I rush it, whereas I find that if I use the collaborators that are the most, some collaborators are worth waiting for. And so it's been taking a long time because everyone's busy, and and so we're lucky if we get in there every couple of months. But I found that when I tried to get in there more frequently, the material wasn't. What I found is that we really, there's that synergy thing that happens where you get the take that sounds better than you expected because you got the right guys.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can play with people who have a tendency to that are great, but tend to just say, "I'll play whatever you want," And then, whereas then when you play with old friends who aren't afraid to say, "This sucks."
Yeah.
And so you need to play with people who bring things you never would have thought of.
Yeah.
And then the music grows and it gets bigger than you. And so, so this process is taking a long time because it's getting better and better as we go.
Yeah.
And
who are you collaborating with? Who are you working with? Besides Paul and
old best friends from growing up. So some brothers from my hometown, Chris and John Ratty.
Oh, cool.
And then bass players kind of switch in and out from different bands that I've played with.
Okay.
Levi's on a couple of them from the Stragglers.
Yeah.
Jimmy Lovechick's on a couple of them.
Oh, wow.
Who was in Jack's Farm with us way back when.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Then,
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So lots of different guys.
Cool.
And then the fun part about it is it's because, so the hard part is that it's not a touring band.
Yeah.
And so we're not out there developing these songs, playing them for people, and then just getting in there and getting a magic take.
Right.
That we have to build them from the singer-songwriter form into the full band.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of trial and error there, which means we need dozens of hours of practice for each tune before we can really even try to get that magic take.
Yeah.
But the advantage of that is that we do have so many great musicians in the area.
Yeah.
And so if a song needs mandolin, I can call Seth, or if a song needs piano, I can call someone else. Or, so some songs, like there's the one that we're working on now that's kind of a romantic tune, and so it really needs a female timbre in the harmonies to kind of match the story, the back and forth in the story. And so so that's where it's fun to just go see bands and meet people and approach them and say, "Hey, I love your voice. Could you put a harmony on my song?"
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And again, I mean, I'm thinking here, I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, well, I can just right off the top of my head pick at least 4 female vocalists that could walk in and probably, just do this stuff in 90 minutes.
Oh, great.
It's like,
Yeah, you have
in
to,
this area.
Yeah, give me some names on the way out the door.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh no, I've boop, boop, yeah.
Because we hope to be get that wrapped up. I hope this winter, so it's ready to come out next year. But I've also been saying that for 2 or 3 years. And I've learned the hard way that it'll be done when it's done.
It's be done when it's done, and if you rush it, it's going to sound like a garage band.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously. I mean, if you walk in and you really want to rush this thing, you're going to get what you get. But if you take your time, and it'll be what you want. So
yeah.
Now, from a personal standpoint, one of the things you're doing coming up is our songwriter showcase down at the Back House on the 16th of October, Friday, and
15th.
15th. See, you know better than I do.
Wait,
I'm
looking. Is there a poster?
No, they're all at home. But let me look at my calendar here.
Yeah,
it is the 18th. 18th.
Right.
Neither one of us was wrong. Yeah. 18th of October. But if anybody's listening to this on the 19th of October, it's already happened, so it's irrelevant. But you're doing the songwriter showcase, so it's you, Alan Colmes, which talk about another just a wide. I mean, this guy could probably walk in and play anything with any band. So it's you, Alan Colmes, and my bandmate Brandon Leach. And I am really looking forward to this because what I'd like to do with these is get, some different, like I don't want three Alan Colmes. I don't want 3 Chris Carithers. I don't want 3 Brandon. I want, like a variety. And Brandon approaches it's very laid back, very like he does a lot of reggae stuff. He does a lot of laid back stuff. I love your stuff. The kind of the dark, ghost stories, murder ballads, and Alan. I mean, he's Alan Colmes. So this is going to be fun, and so that's coming up. I mean, you can give me your perspective on what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think, especially, I'm looking forward to meeting Brandon.
Yeah.
Alan, I've been lucky to have gotten to see him play a bunch of times before, and of course he's a guy who could play anything.
Oh my gosh!
And is also that triple threat of great songs and great voice and a great player. And so I also I love the format of a room like that where it's kind of that round robin kind of Nashville thing, rather than guys just playing sets and getting stuck in their own. Their own lane. It's that if we're trading off songs in that way, everybody kind of sometimes you say, oh wait, I'm going to change my mind and play this because that guy played this.
Good.
And so that'll be fun. And then hopefully I'd love it if the last one or two is always fun to say like who's got an easy 3-chord banger we could just all play.
Yeah, we can work that out. And we can I think we did that when we had Rebecca Jade, Ken Baxter, and KJ. And I think they ended it on was it a song she wrote, or it may have been Will the Circle Be Unbroken? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be great. The other thing is we don't get to do the whole singer-songwriter thing, the whole, building up the story, which, your songs are going to fit so well into that format where you can just, here's the song and it's about fill in the blank. I like that. Some people don't. They say, these guys and gals talk too much when they do that. I'm cool with that. And it's an opportunity for people to do that. And that's at 6:30 at the Back House. We do it, every quarter. But I'm just so glad that you're participating in it. I'm looking forward to this one. I really am.
Yeah, me too.
And the Back House, if you've not been there, it's like going to somebody's living. Well, it essentially is. It's a front parlor of the old Durwalker house, or the old Durwalker dental office. But essentially, we're going to be in the front parlor. You have 2 chairs, and people are sitting on couches and overstuffed chairs, and people are in the back of the room. There's no amplifiers. There's no microphones. It's just you and a guitar and your song. So,
neat.
I'm looking forward to it. Anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think I'd kind of follow your lead there. I think you've
Remember, this is your podcast.
Well, you've been a great prompter. So.
Oh my gosh, you're too kind. So we have the traditional. What's your current guitar? What's your current main guitar, or the one that's like, this is the guitar that is, speaks to me or whatever. What's your current one?
That's tough because it's the right tool for the job. You can't have just one,
right?
And
you can't play golf with one club. That's what I tell my wife.
That's a great way to put it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
So, and then also with really loving to draw inspiration from all kinds of opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
You kind of need you need kind of a big toolbox. And so I have, what I found is, I have an old 90s Westerly Guild acoustic guitar that I love.
Oh, wow.
So it has an arched back, and it's a jumbo. And so it's very, very bright, but also it's deep, but with it's very bright. And so even though it's got a deep timbre to it, it's got bright hints for finger picking.
Okay. Is it a maple, top, or okay? All right. Because when you said bright, it's like, okay, it's got to have maple in there somewhere.
But it's also very, very, very irritable. And so,
meaning what? What do you mean? Irritable?
Seasonal changes. The warps,
okay.
I have a lot of problems with it.
Oh, wow.
And so I do need to maybe think if it's time for a neck reset or something. It's getting a belly bow or the tension over the years. But it sounds great. And so if it was a singer-songwriter thing, I tend to play that because I love it, and I've had it since, I don't know, 99 or something.
Okay.
But it also I've learned through the bands like the Sylvan Dell Stragglers that I love to have a cutaway. I love to be able to reach the upper bout and reach the upper frets. And so if it was a singer-songwriter night, I would probably play that. But for other gigs where I'm playing more as a guitar player and less as a songwriter, that's where I would bring either a resonator or I would bring a cutaway that I can really reach up top, up high. And so I have a couple guitars that I use for that. One is actually a kind of a weird 90s heavy metal kind of unplugged guitar that's like an Ibanez guitar that was an Ibanez acoustic, but it's got a Florentine cutaway like the pointy round ones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's very small bodied, but that makes it super punchy.
Yeah.
So, I like the way it sounds, and the electronics in it are nice.
Yeah.
So I have a couple acoustics that because I also I beat the crap out of them. I think I blame the Celtic band because I like
the guitar can be a percussive instrument if you.
I like really, really heavy strings and really hard picks.
Okay.
And so I break strings all the time.
Okay.
And so I always have to take a couple because I know I'm going to break strings at the worst possible moment. Summertime gigs when it's humid and everything's sweaty and you can feel the strings rust while you're playing. Playing outside in the summer, and so just last week I broke 2 strings in the first set of I don't know. So I'm actually trying to switch to thinner picks and lighter strings, but I just love the percussive sound of really whacking it, a 11s or 12s.
Oh my God.
And so for acoustic, that's kind of the setup. And then I'd always just played Telecasters always. And in the last 5 years or so, being a big Neil Young fan, I finally got a Gretsch.
Ooh,
really?
What Gretsch do you have?
It's a 56 something, it's not like an authentic, not like a.
No. They have Fred Gretsch's name on the headstock. They're all Gretsch's. Yeah. So is this like an Electromatic? They're okay.
Yeah, it's something in the middle. It's kind of.
There's nothing wrong with those. They're great guitars, and they can be. The newer ones are really great. You get some of the older ones. Now, we won't even talk about the Baldwin era. We're going to go down a rabbit hole, ladies and gentlemen. The Baldwin era ones, they're starting to come into their own. But the old Brooklyn ones, when you find a good one, oh my gosh, they're and they can be versatile.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Gretsch, it's all country or rockabilly. No,
I mean Neil Young and Stephen Stills.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's I think it's the right tool for the job, and you don't. I learned the hard way not to take gear out that you don't want a drunk guy to kick over or bad power to melt down, and so they're meant to be played. And if it's so precious that you don't want to wear the frets down, then why
do you have it?
Then keep it in the closet, you know. And so that guitar is perfect, and that it has that bite and that brightness from a Telecaster, but it also they are like humbuckers in there, so it's a little less noisy. And I just love Bigsby's and like trying to fake pedal steel with the volume knob, and that part's really fun. If I get to just be the guitar player, that's a whole nother rabbit hole you can go down, just try to sound like another instrument entirely. And I also, like, I've been lucky in the past couple of years to start to pick up some gigs with a great band called Cass and the Bailout Crew from around here.
Yeah, well, Brandon and I just opened for them down at the Albright Center Thursday night. Cass and Mike.
Yeah.
So you're playing with them too.
Yeah, a little bit when they want.
What a like a 180 from the Stragglers to Cass and the Bailout Crew.
Well, that's the fun part is to try to pick up I'm not really geared up for a modern rock sound.
Yeah.
So it means you got to tweak the pedals but they again, like I love playing with people that I enjoy being around. And Mike helps me out in the studio. Him and Cass have a good thing going on with the split vocals, and that band is a whole nice bunch of, they're good folks. And so sometimes they play a lot. So when they keep a busy schedule. So when they do need the guitar, and I love to play with them. And the fun part for me is now I have to explore something a little different. So I finally, after playing for 35 years or 30 years or something, I finally got a Strat, because it's just the right tool for the job.
For that job,
that you can turn the volume down and clean it up and be twangy, or you can turn the knob up and be heavy. And
the five different, the two out of phase, settings, and that. I'm sure the story is that the old guys back in the 50s would balance that.
Yeah.
There was only 3 pickup selectors for that, and they would balance that because it got that phasey kind of, I call it the Tulsa sound that Clapton and J.J. Cale used to get. And then, a few years after that, Leo and the guys put that the second and fourth position in there. But playing with Cass and the Bailout Crew, could Cass, could she be a little bit more energetic? I mean, I really think that she really needs to come out of her shell.
Well, as just a guy who's there along for the ride, they do all the hard work. They have the material all worked out. They have the show worked out. And again, it's nice to be able to just kind of walk into a situation of, here's a great band, and I just get to show up.
It's called Cass and the Bailout Crew.
Sure.
Because nobody's coming there to see Mike. They're coming there because she brings it to the stage, man. She really does a great job. And just the two of them, because we opened for them, Brandon and I opened for them. Then I got to sit back and watch them do the duo show, acoustic, and we're like, well, she's just as bringing it out on stage as she is with the full band. So, but I didn't know you played with them.
Well, just a little bit, and but I enjoy it and would and love to do it. And so, and then it's also new for me in that having that singer and having that person who connects to the crowd, it frees you up to just be the guitar geek who's just like looking at your pedals and just really focus on the guitar stuff instead of and so so that's where I guess all this started with a conversation about gear, but to now be trying to explore the Strat vibrato system, compared to the Bigsby I'm used to. And things like that. It's just a whole new part of the journey.
Well, they're two different animals. One, the Strat is a knife edge, and which. Oh, fudge. It wasn't Leo Fender that developed that, but I'm trying to think of the engineer that developed that for Leo. Anyhow, and then the Bigsby is, it's essentially just, kind of a basic tremolo, but it worked,
Yeah. And it really has I find the Bigsby so expressive. And so that's fun because it's a different way of playing with a bit of a heavier sound. Yeah. You're playing more unisons, more, just playing like octaves to really beef things up, and so it's a fun thing to explore. And then great songwriting in terms of the music's engaging. and Mike writes good songs, and so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just fun to be a part of, and
Yeah.
and so those are always the gigs that it's fun to it's fun to, even though when we're doing our own thing, that is kind of it's our job to push it forward and get it
Yep.
birthed into the world, but then to play in someone else's band and just be a kind of a support player.
Yep.
Yeah,
You've got your little workstation. You're contributing to it, but you're not the CEO.
Yeah.
You're not Cass and Mike. You can just sit back and that would be fun. See, that would be a dream gig. Me though, it would be on bass. If I could just find a band and just walk in, play bass, not do anything, not sing, and then pack everything up and leave. That's my dream gig. So good for you, man. Last question is piece of gear that you got rid of that you wish you could get back.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
Okay. I hate to do that.
Yeah. So let's see. Back when I want to say my kid was my oldest, Sophie, was maybe 3. So that would have been 2009 or so. Right around the time that I quit playing all the time, I found a 1964 Guild Starfire hollow body guitar with a real Bigsby, and it was beautiful. And
this was back when they were made in, I want to say up in the New England states. It was I forget the whole lineage of Guild, but it was essentially a bunch
Westerly, Rhode Island, I want to say.
I think so. But the Guild came from they were a group of luthiers or guitar builders that went and set this up, and that's what they. Yeah. Oh, and 64 Starfire.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, because you're gonna make me cry.
And I do love Guild guitars. Like my favorite acoustic is a Guild. And, and it was beautiful. Like it was well used and loved, and so it had the wear in all the right places, and like a deep kind of maroon red, and it was nice, but it also was another guitar that during that 5 or 10 years that I didn't play, it just sat in the closet. And so I had a new family and I was broke, and so I figured, okay, it's time to let this go, and which was, of course, I knew at the time was probably a mistake, but I had to do it.
Sure.
So I ended up selling it, and took my daughter in the car to sell it. And on the way back from selling the guitar, I got pulled over and got a speeding ticket. And I felt like that was God telling me, okay, now a chunk of this money has to go right.
Let's go.
This is your penalty for doing this stupid thing. And she, I remember like the lights came on behind me, and my daughter saying, "Daddy, it's the popo," and like she will never let me forget her earliest memories of me getting a ticket. I feel like what a waste, And now, having bought the Gretsch, like I could have had that all along.
Yeah.
But it's hopefully long may you run. It's out there somewhere doing somebody good
Yeah,
somewhere.
you got to a good home. You never know, but.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the unsung vintage guitars of these Guilds, especially the Starfires. They're right up there with the vintage Brooklyn-made Gretches.
And it had the master volume, which is nice. Like I've never been able to figure out, coming from Telecasters, too many knobs. I can't do it. Like I need one volume, one tone is all I need. Yeah. And so it's heartbreaking if somebody's out there and they're ready to let go of it.
Yeah.
Get back to me.
Yeah.
I'll trade a kidney or something, and you can have it.
As long as you don't get a speeding ticket, go to pick it up.
Yeah.
I hope that you in the audience can appreciate, from the Sylvan Dell Stragglers to Cass and the Bailout Crew to the singer-songwriter, the songs that we featured here today, just what a versatile guitarist, songwriter, musician that Chris Carithers is. And I knew Chris kind of peripherally up until then, but up until today, excuse me. But I really have an appreciation for just how well-rounded you are as far as a musician and a songwriter. But also, I respect the fact that you want to be the guy that's kind of learning. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you right now. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming here and honoring me with the time that you spent here and chatting a little bit about your life.
Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. We are going to end with the Prince of Pennsylvania, which Chris has already kind of given us the background. Again, second place for the Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriter competition for 2024. And you can catch Chris out with the Sylvan Dell Stragglers, casting the Bailout Crew, his singer-songwriter stuff. So again, my friend, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And we'll see you down the road.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're great. Prince of Pennsylvania, closing things out with Chris Carithers here on the Rec Room Radio Hour podcast.
Pennsylvania moonshine, as clear as rain, and I make the best shine in North PA. They call me the Prince, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from Copper World. Limestone water, tie a dotting head by the Susquehanna. I set my still. They call me the Prince, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Copper kettle, it starts to burn, hits the thump keg, comes out the worm. The Prince Farrington, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. I sell my shine at $1 a quart, lay down your dollar, get you a snort. Call me the Prince, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Mix up the mash, fire up the still, burnt down the barn when I was 12. Prince Farrington, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Forget your beans, plow down your vines, I'll pay you double to plant my rye. Cause I'm the Prince, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Hey, treasure man, you can't catch me. These closed-mouthed Dutchmen, they leave me be. Prince Farrington, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Now I'm old and broke, and I got bad feet. Bring back the dry law, so I can get a drink. Call me the Prince, Robin Hood on the phone, best doggone liquor from a Copper World. Best doggone liquor from a Copper World.
It was great to sit down with Chris Carithers and get to know him. That was his song, The Prince of Pennsylvania, the second place winner of this year's Pennsylvania Heritage Songwriter Competition. And just a remarkably talented man, a remarkably talented songwriter, a remarkably gracious and kind person. It was so great to sit down with Chris for this podcast. Hey, this podcast was recorded in our studios at the Pajama Factory for WXPI and was mixed and edited here at Airline Studio, and the entire production was supervised by Roxy, who is right here with me, and you can probably hear her back in the background flapping her ears. Hey, check out WXPIradio.org, and please consider making a little financial contribution to our radio station. Hey, until the next episode of the podcast, this is your humble and contrite host, Michael Lundy, asking you, as always, to don't fret, stay tuned, and play nice. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.